The winds on Drakkar Prime screamed like wounded animals as Tyler Ross stepped carefully through the smoking ruins. He'd been tracking criminals across the outer colonies for 12 years now, but this scene made his stomach twist in ways he hadn't felt since his first year on the job. Bodies everywhere. Dozens of them scattered across the blackened ground like broken toys some cruel child had discarded. These weren't just animals though. The Drakenthropes were recognized across the galaxy as intelligent beings, protected by every law the Council had ever written. Someone had come here and murdered an entire colony anyway. Tyler's helmet scanner swept the area, painting everything in cold blue light. Plasma burns marked the rocks. Industrial cutting tools had torn through nests. This wasn't some random attack by desperate pirates. This was organized, professional, and absolutely illegal. Somewhere out there, rich collectors were paying fortunes for Drakenthrope scales and eggs, and these butchers were happy to supply them. His boots crunched over fragments of crystalline eggs as he moved deeper into what used to be a nesting ground. The air stank of sulfur and death. Tyler had seen plenty of crime scenes, but there was something especially horrible about this one. These creatures had been protecting their children when they died. That's when he heard it. A sound so faint he almost missed it over the howling wind. A high-pitched keening, like a wounded animal crying for help. Tyler's hand moved automatically to the plasma rifle strapped across his back, but something made him stop. That wasn't an aggressive sound. That was fear and pain mixed together. He followed the sound around a jagged outcrop of volcanic rock, and what he saw made him freeze in place. There in the shadows, tangled up in a glowing net designed to catch things 5 times its size, was a baby dragon. Well, that's what Tyler's brain called it anyway. Officially it was a Drakenthrope hatchling, but with those wings and scales and that long tail, it looked exactly like the dragons from old Earth stories. The little thing couldn't have been more than a few days old. Its body was about the size of a large cat, covered in copper-colored scales that shimmered even in the dim light. But one of those delicate wings was bent at an angle that made Tyler wince just looking at it. Thin wisps of smoke rose from where the electric net was burning into its skin. Those eyes though, that's what got him. Golden eyes that looked far too old and intelligent for something so young. They locked onto Tyler the moment he came into view, and the hatchling went completely still. Not because it was calm. Because it was terrified. It knew exactly what he was. A human. A predator. The same species that had spent decades tearing through the galaxy, taking whatever they wanted and crushing anyone who got in their way. Tyler's AI assistant, a program he'd named Vera years ago, spoke directly into his ear through the neural implant. I must advise caution. Young Drakenthropes possess defensive capabilities that could be lethal. Recommend maintaining a safe distance. Instead of backing away, Tyler reached up and pressed the release on his helmet. The seals hissed as it retracted, and the hot sulfurous air hit him like a slap. His lungs burned immediately, but he wanted the creature to see his face. To see that he wasn't just another faceless threat. Easy there, little one, Tyler said quietly, keeping his voice soft and steady. He slowly lowered himself to one knee, making himself smaller, less threatening. His hand extended palm up in a gesture of peace that probably meant nothing to an alien baby, but it was all he had. I'm not here to hurt you. The hatchling's nostrils flared as it tested his scent. Its head tilted slightly, those ancient eyes studying him with an intelligence that sent chills down Tyler's spine. Every instinct millions of years of evolution had given this creature was screaming danger. Humans were persistence predators, the species that had hunted extinct more animals on Earth than any other. The species that never stopped, never quit, never gave up once they'd chosen prey. But Tyler wasn't moving like a hunter. He was moving carefully, deliberately, like someone who wanted to help rather than harm. The net pulsed with another surge of electricity, and the hatchling's shriek of pain cut through Tyler like a knife. That sound decided everything. He pulled his multi-tool from his belt and started working on the power nodes that kept the net active, even as those tiny razor-sharp teeth snapped at his fingers. Yeah, I'd be angry too if I were you, Tyler muttered, dodging another attempt to bite him. His fingers flew over the net's mechanisms with practiced ease. This is going to hurt a little more before it gets better. Just hang on for me, okay? Vera's voice cut through his concentration with news he really didn't want to hear. Multiple engine signatures detected. The poachers are returning to collect their catch. They'll be here in approximately 4 minutes. Tyler's jaw clenched. 4 minutes. Not enough time to be gentle about this. He started cutting through the power conduits faster, sparks flying as his tool sheared through the net's energy source. Then I better work faster. The hatchling thrashed weakly as he worked, each movement causing the net to burn it worse. Tyler could see the pain in those golden eyes and hated every second of it. But he had to get it free before those butchers came back. With a final shower of sparks, the net died and collapsed. The hatchling tried to scramble away on instinct, but its broken wing threw off its balance. It tumbled forward and landed right in Tyler's arms. For one long heartbeat, neither of them moved. The little dragon stared up at him, trembling, waiting for claws or teeth or whatever horrible thing it expected from this predator. Its whole body was tense, ready for death because what else could possibly come from a human? Tyler carefully adjusted his grip, supporting the injured wing so it wouldn't hurt worse. "I've got you," he whispered, feeling the rapid flutter of the creature's heartbeat against his chest. "You're safe now. I promise." The sound of engines grew louder. Through the smoke and ash, Tyler could see 3 heavy ships descending toward the nesting ground. Professional equipment. Military-grade weapons. These people had probably killed hundreds of Drakenthropes and weren't about to let one witness escape. Vera ran the numbers instantly, her tone as calm as always. Probability of successful escape while protecting the hatchling, 23%. My recommendation is to leave the creature hidden and extract immediately. You cannot save it if you're dead. Tyler was already moving though, tucking the little dragon inside his jacket where his body heat and the thick fabric would protect it from the harsh environment. The hatchling's tiny claws dug into his shirt, holding on tight despite its fear and pain. "Not happening," Tyler said, breaking into a run toward where he'd left his ship. "I've walked away from too many things I shouldn't have in my life. I'm not doing it again." "That's a 77% probability of death," Vera pointed out with the kind of logic only a computer program could manage when someone's life was on the line. Tyler couldn't help but grin despite the danger, feeling the scared little creature pressed against his chest, trusting him even though it had every reason not to. "Then I guess today's a good day to beat the odds. Wouldn't be my first time." The first plasma bolt screamed past close enough for him to feel the heat. The poachers had spotted him and they weren't trying to capture him. They were trying to kill him. Anyone who'd seen their massacre couldn't be allowed to leave this moon alive. Tyler didn't look back. He just ran, one hand pressed protectively over the tiny life depending entirely on him to survive. Behind them, the nesting ground still burned with the evidence of humanity's worst impulses. Ahead, the odds were terrible and getting worse by the second. But Tyler Ross had learned something important during his years working the dangerous edges of civilized space. Humans didn't survive in this galaxy by being the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. They survived by being too stubborn to know when to quit. By refusing to accept defeat even when any reasonable person would give up. Today that stubbornness might just save 2 lives instead of 1. Or get them both killed trying. Either way, Tyler knew he'd made the right choice. Some things were worth any risk. The canyon walls blurred into streaks of black and red as Tyler sprinted through the narrow passage, his lungs burning from the toxic air. Inside his jacket, the hatchling had gone completely still. Tyler couldn't tell if that was from shock or if the little thing had passed out from pain. Either way, he needed to get them both off this moon fast. 3 aircraft tracking you from above, Vera announced in his ear, her voice maddeningly calm. 2 ground vehicles closing from your flanks. They've marked you as a witness. Standard protocol for this type of operation is complete elimination. Tyler vaulted over a chunk of fallen rock, his knee screaming in protest. He wasn't as young as he used to be, and running for his life while protecting a baby alien was definitely not what his body wanted to be doing right now. "Yeah, I figured they weren't chasing me to shake hands and apologize." Another plasma bolt hit the rock face next to his head, superheating the stone until it cracked and exploded. Fragments peppered his back, but his armor held. Barely. These guys weren't messing around. They had military-grade weapons and they knew how to use them. His ship sat half a kilometer away across open ground. Might as well have been on another planet for all the good it did him. The moment he left the cover of these canyons, those aircraft would cut him to pieces. Tyler ducked into a shallow cave, pressing his back against the rough stone. His hands were shaking from adrenaline as he carefully opened his jacket to check on the hatchling. Those golden eyes stared back at him, wide with terror but still aware. Still alive. The little dragon's scales had changed color, shifting from copper to match the dark volcanic rock around them. Some kind of camouflage reflex, Tyler realized. Smart. "Listen," Tyler whispered even though he knew the creature couldn't understand a word. "I know you're scared. I know you don't have any reason to trust me. But I'm going to get you out of this. I promise." The hatchling tilted its head, and for just a second Tyler could have sworn there was understanding in those ancient eyes. Like maybe it knew he was trying to help, even if everything in its DNA told it to fear him. Connection established with Galactic Wildlife Protection Agency, Vera said suddenly. They're demanding immediate surrender of the protected specimen. I should inform you that interfering with a drakenthrope, even in rescue circumstances, carries a mandatory prison sentence of 15 to 20 years. Tyler's heart sank. You're joking. I do not joke. The laws were written after the resource wars to prevent any human contact with drakenthrope populations. The penalties are deliberately severe. So I'm wanted by the poachers and by the good guys? Tyler let out a bitter laugh. That's just perfect. Additionally, the Drakenthrope Council has issued a statement. They're calling for your immediate arrest. Relations between humans and drakenthropes have been extremely hostile since your species invaded their breeding colonies 30 years ago. They view any human contact with their young as attempted kidnapping at best, genocide at worst. Tyler looked down at the trembling creature in his arms. The hatchling was watching him with those impossibly intelligent eyes, clearly sensing his distress. One small clawed hand reached out and touched his chest, right over his heart. The gesture was so achingly trusting that Tyler felt something crack open inside him. He'd done terrible things during the resource wars. Followed orders he shouldn't have followed. Looked the other way when his unit did things that still gave him nightmares. He told himself it was necessary, that survival justified anything, that he was just one man and couldn't change the system. He'd been wrong about all of it. When Tyler finally left the military, he'd made himself a promise. Never again would he stand by while something helpless suffered. Never again would he choose the easy path over the right one, even if it cost him everything. Vera, I need options that don't involve abandoning this kid. There are no optimal solutions, Vera replied. However, there is one suboptimal approach with a 34% survival probability. I'll take it. What we got? The plan was insane. It involved running across open ground while those aircraft hunted him, trusting his armor to take hits that would probably kill him anyway, and hoping his ship's automated defenses could shoot down the drones before they turned him into charcoal. 34%. Those were terrible odds. Tyler had seen people bet on worse and lose everything. But then he looked at the hatchling again. This little creature hadn't asked to be born into a galaxy where its entire species was hunted for profit. Hadn't asked for its family to be slaughtered. Hadn't done anything except have the bad luck to survive when everyone else died. The smart play was obvious. Hide the hatchling somewhere safe and lead the poachers away. Come back later if he survived. Maybe the baby dragon would make it on its own. Maybe not. But at least Tyler would live to fight another day. He could almost hear his old commander's voice in his head. Think with your brain, Ross, not your heart. Emotions get people killed. Tyler had followed that advice for years. It had kept him alive through the wars, through countless dangerous jobs, through situations where caring too much would have destroyed him. He'd become very good at making the practical choice, the smart choice, the choice that prioritized survival above everything else. And he'd hated himself a little more each time. No, Tyler said quietly, carefully tucking the hatchling back against his chest. The little dragon curled into him, seeking warmth and protection. I'm not that person anymore. Tyler, the probability of death is. I don't care about the probability, Vera. I care about doing the right thing for once in my life. He took 3 deep breaths, feeling the hatchling's heartbeat against his ribs. Fast and scared but steady. Strong. This little creature was a fighter. It had survived the massacre, survived the net, survived everything this terrible day had thrown at it. The least Tyler could do was match that courage. All right, little dragon, he murmured. Hold on tight. This is going to get rough. Tyler burst from the cave at a full sprint. Immediately the air exploded with weapons fire. Plasma bolts turned the ground around him into glass. Explosive rounds shattered rocks behind him. The aircraft above screamed as they dove, their targeting systems locked onto him. But Tyler had spent 20 years learning how to survive when everything wanted him dead. He zigzagged through the fire, never running in a straight line, using every bit of cover the terrain offered. A shot clipped his shoulder armor, another burned through his leg guard, but he didn't slow down. 50 meters to open ground. 40. 30. That's when the hatchling did something completely impossible. A sound erupted from the tiny creature pressed against Tyler's chest. Not a scream or a roar, but something else entirely. A frequency that made Tyler's teeth ache and his vision blur. The nearest aircraft suddenly veered wildly off course, smoke pouring from its systems. Then another. Then all 3 of them, spinning out of control like they'd been hit by some invisible weapon. What the hell? Tyler gasped, still running but unable to process what he'd just seen. Electromagnetic pulse combined with ultrasonic disruption, Vera said, and for the first time ever she sounded excited. The hatchling just disabled all 3 aircraft with abilities that aren't documented in any scientific literature. Tyler, this is extraordinary. The hatchling's scales began to glow with a soft amber light, pulsing in rhythm with that impossible sound. Tyler felt warmth spreading through his chest where the creature pressed against him, and suddenly his burning lungs didn't hurt quite as much. His exhausted legs found new strength. Good dragon, Tyler laughed breathlessly, his heart soaring despite the danger. Very good dragon. The EMP bought him precious seconds. Tyler exploded into the open ground with his ship in sight, the boarding ramp already lowering as Vera worked ahead of him. The ground vehicles recovered faster than the aircraft, their drivers slamming the accelerators as they raced to cut him off. 20 meters. 15. 10. A plasma bolt caught him square in the back. Even with armor, the impact drove Tyler to his knees. Pain exploded through his body, white-hot and overwhelming. His vision grayed at the edges. For a terrible moment he thought he'd failed. But his arms stayed locked around the hatchling, protecting it even as he fell. The little dragon squirmed free and Tyler's heart broke. Of course it would run. Any smart creature would. He tried his best and it hadn't been enough. Except the hatchling didn't run. Instead, it positioned itself on Tyler's chest, spreading its wings as wide as they would go. The broken one dragged uselessly, but the little dragon didn't seem to care. It hissed at the approaching vehicles, a sound far too fierce for something so small. Defying them. Protecting the human who'd saved it. Defending him. You stubborn little thing, Tyler groaned, forcing himself upright despite the screaming agony. He scooped up the dragon and staggered the final meters to his ship, legs barely working, vision tunneling, running purely on willpower and adrenaline. The moment they crossed the threshold, the ramp slammed shut and the ship launched with enough force to pin them both to the deck. Weapons fire pinged harmlessly off the shields as Vera piloted them up and away, threading through the canyons at speeds that should have been impossible. Tyler lay on the cold metal floor, breathing hard, the hatchling still clutched against his chest. Every nerve in his body was screaming about the plasma burn on his back. His armor had melted through in places. He'd probably have scars for life. He couldn't stop smiling. We made it, he whispered to the little dragon. We actually made it. The hatchling chirped softly and nuzzled against his neck, and Tyler felt tears stinging his eyes. When was the last time something had trusted him this completely? When was the last time he'd done something purely good, with no angle, no profit, nothing but the simple desire to help? Course plotted for neutral space, Vera announced. However, I should inform you that we're now wanted by 3 different galactic governments. The news feeds are calling this the Drakkar incident. You're officially a criminal, Tyler. Tyler carefully sat up, cradling the injured hatchling. Through the viewport, he watched Drakkar Prime fall away as they jumped to faster-than-light speed. The stars stretched into lines and somewhere behind them, a galaxy full of people wanted him arrested or dead. Yeah, Tyler said softly, looking down at the little dragon gazing up at him with absolute trust. Some things are worth the trouble. The hatchling made a sound that was almost like a purr, and Tyler knew he'd made the right choice. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. The hum of the ship's engines became Tyler's entire world as they pushed deeper into neutral space, putting as much distance as possible between them and Drakkar Prime. His back still throbbed where the plasma bolt had hit, but he couldn't rest yet. The hatchling needed him. Hold still for me, Tyler said for what felt like the 100th time, carefully positioning the tiny splint along the dragon's broken wing. The little creature squirmed on the medical table, chirping its annoyance at being poked and prodded. 5 days had passed since their escape. 5 days of the galaxy collectively losing its mind over what the media was calling the Drakkar incident. Tyler's face was plastered across every news feed from here to the core worlds, and none of it was flattering. Vera displayed the headlines on the wall screen while Tyler worked. Rogue bounty hunter steals protected hatchling. Drakenthropes demand humans' execution. Is this how the next war starts? They really know how to make a guy feel special, Tyler muttered, applying the bonding gel that would help the bone heal properly. The hatchling bit his thumb in response, not hard enough to break skin, just a warning nip. Yeah, I know you hate this. Trust me, I'm not enjoying it either. The little dragon had grown noticeably in just 5 days. What had been the size of a house cat was now closer to a medium-sized dog. Its scales had developed a deeper shine, shifting colors based on mood and surroundings. Copper when calm, bronze when curious, deep red when angry, and a nervous gray when frightened. More impressive than the physical growth was the intelligence. The hatchling had started mimicking sounds almost immediately. The hiss of the airlock. Vera's notification chimes. Even a few of Tyler's more colorful curse words when he'd stubbed his toe yesterday morning. The tribunal at Nexus Station is scheduled in 3 days, Vera reported, her tone as matter-of-fact as always. Representatives from the Terran Federation, the Drakenthrope High Council, and the Galactic Wildlife Protection Agency will all be present. They're calling it the most important interspecies hearing in 50 years. Tyler secured the splint with medical tape, checking to make sure it wasn't too tight. No pressure then. I should also mention that the Drakenthrope matriarch herself is coming. Her name translates to Catherine Reeves in Standard. She lost multiple family members during the resource wars. Her hatred of humans is well documented. That information sat heavy in Tyler's stomach. He looked down at the hatchling, who had finally stopped squirming and was watching him with those impossibly intelligent golden eyes. Your people and mine have a real ugly history, don't we, little one? The dragon tilted its head, then did something that made Tyler's breath catch. It reached out one small clawed hand and placed it over Tyler's, the gesture unmistakably gentle. Like it was trying to comfort him. Vera, please tell me you're recording this. Every moment. Several major universities have offered substantial sums for exclusive access to the footage. I've declined on your behalf. Good. Tyler carefully lifted the hatchling, noting how it no longer struggled against his touch. Trust. That's what this was. Pure, complete trust from a creature that had every reason to fear him. Some things shouldn't have a price tag. The dragon settled comfortably in his arms, and Tyler carried it to the small living quarters. Over the past 5 days they developed routines. The hatchling couldn't eat human food, obviously, so Vera had used the ship's synthesizer to create a nutrient paste based on Drakenthrope biology. It wasn't perfect, but the little dragon was eating well and growing stronger every day. Tyler had started calling it Ember after watching its scales glow that amber color when it used its electromagnetic abilities. The name seemed to fit, and the hatchling responded to it now, perking up whenever Tyler said it. The hardest part was the nights. Ember had nightmares. Bad ones. The little dragon would thrash and keen in distress, reliving the massacre that had killed its entire family. The first time it happened, Tyler had panicked, not knowing what to do. Then instinct took over. The same instinct that had made him scoop up a terrified hatchling on Drakkar Prime. He picked up Ember and started walking the ship's corridors, humming old songs his mother used to sing when he was scared as a kid. Something about the vibrations seemed to calm the little dragon. Now it was part of their routine. When Ember had nightmares, Tyler would carry it around the ship, humming and talking softly until the creature relaxed again. You're getting attached, Vera observed as Tyler settled onto his bunk with Ember curling up on his chest. Emotionally compromised might be a better term. Is that a problem? It will be when they take it away. Galactic law is extremely clear. Drakenthropes are protected. Human custody is forbidden after what happened during the expansion years. The tribunal will remove Ember from your care, and you'll likely face imprisonment. Tyler stared at the ceiling, feeling Ember's steady breathing against his ribs. The little dragon trusted him completely now, felt safe with him. The idea of someone ripping them apart made his chest ache. We're not all monsters, you know, Tyler said quietly. Humans? Yeah, we've done horrible things. Invaded worlds that weren't ours. Destroyed ecosystems. Killed people who were just trying to protect their homes. I participated in some of that and I'll never forgive myself for it. He paused, one hand gently stroking the ridge of scales along Ember's back. The little dragon made a contented sound in its sleep. But we've also done good things. Humans have died saving complete strangers. We've adopted orphans from dozens of species. We've sacrificed everything to protect people we just met. That has to count for something, right? I'm an artificial intelligence, Vera replied. I calculate probabilities, not moral judgments. However, the data does suggest that humans are uniquely capable of both extraordinary cruelty and extraordinary compassion, often from the same individuals. Tyler thought about that. His own life was proof of it. He'd done things during the war that still haunted him. Followed orders that resulted in deaths he could never take back. But he'd also risked everything to save one small creature that most people would have ignored. What do you think happens at the tribunal? He asked. Best case scenario, they take Ember and you serve minimal jail time. Worst case, they execute you as an example and Ember gets locked in a research facility for study. Most likely outcome falls somewhere in the middle. You go to prison, Ember returns to the Drakenthropes, and both species continue hating each other for another 50 years. Those are all terrible options.
Yes.
However, there is a statistical anomaly I've been tracking. Tyler glanced at the ceiling-mounted camera where Vera's processing core was housed. What kind of anomaly? The bond forming between you and Ember shouldn't be possible according to every xenopsychology study ever conducted. Drakenthropes are reptilian, solitary creatures. They don't form emotional attachments outside their own species, especially not with mammals. Yet Ember has bonded with you in ways that suggest deep emotional connection. As if to prove the point, Ember shifted in sleep, one small hand clutching Tyler's shirt like a child holding a security blanket. So what does that mean?
Tyler asked.
It means you're breaking the rules in ways science can't explain. Human-Drakenthrope relations have been hostile for 5 decades because both species see each other as threats. But you didn't treat Ember as a threat or a commodity. You treated it as a person who needed help. And Ember responded by choosing to trust you despite millions of years of evolution saying it shouldn't. Tyler thought about the moment when Ember had defended him instead of running away. A tiny creature, injured and scared, choosing to protect the human who'd saved it. That wasn't just instinct or conditioning.
That was choice. Connection.
Maybe even love in whatever form a baby dragon could understand it. The tribunal needs to see this, Vera continued. Not the sanitized media version or the political spin. The actual relationship. A human and a Drakenthrope choosing each other despite everything their species have done. It's a statistical improbability, but there's a 2% chance this could change everything.
2%?
Those are worse odds than our escape.
Yes.
But you seem to specialize in beating bad odds. Tyler smiled despite everything, his hand resting protectively on the sleeping dragon. Then I guess we'd better give them a show worth watching. Outside the ship, the stars streamed past in the infinite dark. Somewhere ahead, a tribunal waited to judge them. Politicians who'd never risked anything, lawyers who'd never held a terrified child, bureaucrats who'd never had to choose between following rules and doing what was right. They'd see the laws Tyler had broken. The protocols he'd violated. The precedents he'd shattered. They'd have charts and regulations and 5 decades of justified anger to back up whatever punishment they decided on. But they wouldn't have this. This quiet moment of a human and a dragon sleeping peacefully together, 2 species that were supposed to be enemies finding unexpected family in each other. Maybe that wouldn't be enough. Probably wouldn't be if Tyler was being honest with himself. 2% odds weren't great. But Ember made a soft chirping sound in sleep, and Tyler felt that fierce protective instinct surge through him again. The same instinct that had made him risk everything on Drakkar Prime. The same stubborn refusal to accept that some things couldn't be fixed. 3 days until we reach Nexus Station, Vera said quietly. Then we'd better make them count, Tyler replied, watching Ember sleep. If we're going down fighting. The little dragon's scales glowed faintly amber in response, as if agreeing even in sleep. And for just a moment Tyler let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, 2% was enough. After all, they'd survived 23% odds 5 days ago. What was a little more impossible added to the pile? Part 4, The Consequences. Nexus Station floated in the blackness of space like a massive steel flower, each petal representing one of the 47 species that made up the Galactic Council. Tyler had been here twice before in his bounty hunting days, and neither visit had been pleasant. This one was shaping up to be infinitely worse. Security is absurdly tight, Vera warned as they approached the docking bay. Weapon scanners every 10 meters. Biometric tracking. AI surveillance monitoring your every breath. They're treating this like you're a war criminal. Tyler looked down at Ember, who had grown even more in the past 3 days. The little dragon now stood almost waist-high, and its movements were becoming more coordinated and powerful. The broken wing had healed perfectly, and yesterday Ember had managed its first real flight, circling the cargo bay for nearly a minute before landing proudly at Tyler's feet. "You ready for this?" Tyler asked quietly. Ember chirped and pressed its head against his leg, a gesture of trust they'd developed. Those golden eyes looked up at him with complete confidence, as if Tyler could fix anything. The weight of that trust felt heavier than any armor he'd ever worn. The docking ramp extended with a mechanical hiss, and Tyler was immediately surrounded by armed guards. 2 humans in Terran Federation combat gear. 2 Drakenthropes in ceremonial armor that still looked plenty functional. And 1 massive insectoid from the Wildlife Protection Agency, its compound eyes reflecting Tyler's image 1,000 times over. Tyler Ross, the insectoid's translator, clicked out the words. "Surrender the hatchling immediately and submit to custody." Ember's scales rippled, shifting to that aggressive red pattern Tyler had learned meant danger. The little dragon's growl was deeper now, more threatening. Its wings spread slightly, making it look bigger, more intimidating. "Easy, Ember," Tyler murmured, keeping his hands visible and non-threatening. "Nobody's surrendering anybody. We're here to talk, not fight." "This is not a negotiation," one of the Drakenthrope guards hissed. Her nameplate identified her as Beth Martinez in standard translation. "The hatchling belongs with its own people." "Ember is a person, not property," Tyler said carefully, keeping his voice calm. "And right now, Ember is choosing to stay with me. Look." Every eye turned to the little dragon, who had wrapped its tail protectively around Tyler's leg and was glaring at the guards with unmistakable hostility. The body language was crystal clear. "Try to separate us and see what happens." Beth stared at Ember for a long moment, and something flickered across her reptilian features.
Confusion maybe. Or surprise.
"This is highly unusual. Hatchlings don't bond with other species. Our biology doesn't allow for it." "Well, nobody told us that," Tyler replied. "How about this? I'll walk to the tribunal peacefully. Ember comes with me. No restraints, no cages, no separation. You get me in custody, I get to keep Ember safe. Everybody wins." The guards exchanged glances, clearly unsure how to handle a suspect who was cooperating but refusing to be separated from illegal contraband. Finally, Beth nodded slowly.
"Agreed.
"But if the creature shows aggression toward anyone—" "Ember," Tyler corrected firmly. "The creature has a name. And the only aggression you'll see is if someone tries to take Ember away from me." They walked through Nexus Station in tense silence, attracting stares from every species they passed. A human with a Drakenthrope hatchling was unprecedented, impossible, the kind of thing that made people stop and stare. Tyler heard whispers in a dozen languages, some curious, many hostile, all fascinated. The tribunal chamber was enormous, designed to accommodate everything from meter-tall amphibians to crystalline giants that scraped the ceiling. At the center sat 3 judges on an elevated platform. Admiral Douglas Peterson of the Terran Federation, a man with iron-gray hair and harder eyes. Matriarch Catherine Reeves of the Drakenthropes, her emerald scales marked with the scars of someone who'd survived wars. And Arbiter Helen Foster of the Wildlife Protection Agency, a human woman whose reputation for following the law was legendary. Tyler and Ember stood in the defendant's circle, surrounded by holographic screens that showed evidence from every angle.
The massacre site. The rescue. The escape through the canyons.
Every moment documented and dissected by people who hadn't been there, hadn't felt Ember's terror, hadn't made the choice to help instead of walk away. Admiral Peterson spoke first, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed.
"Tyler Ross.
You stand accused of unlawful interference with a protected species, kidnapping of a Drakenthrope hatchling, resisting lawful arrest, and inciting an interspecies incident that has brought us to the brink of renewed conflict. How do you plead?" Tyler straightened his shoulders and met the Admiral's gaze without flinching. "Guilty of saving a life, sir. If that's a crime in this galaxy, then yeah, I'm guilty." Murmurs rippled through the packed gallery. Matriarch Catherine leaned forward, and when she spoke, her voice carried the cold weight of decades of hatred. "You humans always believe you know what's best for everyone. 50 years ago, your people invaded our breeding colonies. You stole our eggs for genetic experiments. You slaughtered entire nests because we refused to give you our worlds. And now you dare to stand here and claim to be a savior?" Each word hit Tyler like a physical blow. He'd read the histories, knew what his species had done during the desperate expansion years. Knew that people like him had followed orders that resulted in the deaths of thousands of Drakenthropes. There was no excuse for it, no justification that could wash away that blood. But he could show them something different. "You're absolutely right," Tyler said quietly, and the chamber fell silent. "Humans have done terrible things to your people. Things that make me ashamed to be the same species as the ones who gave those orders. I can't change the past. Can't bring back the families we destroyed. Can't speak for every human in the galaxy." He paused, gesturing to the holographic displays. "But I can tell you what I saw on Drakkar Prime. I saw poachers who'd murdered dozens of your people for profit. And I saw one hatchling still alive, trapped and dying. I saw a child in pain." The displays activated, showing the footage. Tyler kneeling in the toxic air. His hands working to free Ember from the net despite the danger. His voice soft and careful. "Come here, little dragon. Let me help you." "I didn't save Ember because I wanted a reward," Tyler continued. "Didn't do it for money or fame or to make humans look good. I did it because walking away from a helpless child isn't something I'm capable of anymore. Maybe I should have left well enough alone. Maybe I should have followed the law and let Ember die alone and scared. But I couldn't. Some things matter more than rules. Compelling words, Arbiter Foster interjected, her tone skeptical. But good intentions don't change facts. Drakenthrope hatchlings require specialized care. Specific nutrition. Environmental conditions a human ship cannot provide. By your own admission, you've been improvising with equipment designed for your species. The hatchling should be in professional care with its own kind. Then watch this, Tyler said simply. Vera played more footage. Tyler walking the corridors at night with Ember cradled in his arms, humming old Earth songs to chase away nightmares. The careful surgery on the broken wing, performed with human medical tools adapted on the fly. Feeding times where Tyler had figured out what worked through trial and error. Play sessions where they'd learned to communicate despite having no common language. The final clip showed this morning. Ember had accidentally knocked over Tyler's toolkit, scattering wrenches and screwdrivers across the floor. Tyler had sighed and started picking them up. Without being asked, without any training, Ember had immediately started helping. The little dragon carefully picked up tools with surprising dexterity and placed them back in the container, mimicking Tyler's movements exactly. The tribunal chamber went completely silent. That's cooperation, Dr. James Mitchell, the xenobiology expert, said from his witness seat, his voice filled with wonder. Not trained behavior. Not conditioned responses. That's voluntary cooperation based on understanding and mutual respect. I've studied drakenthropes for 30 years and I've never seen anything remotely like this. Matriarch Catherine's expression was unreadable. You taught the hatchling to mimic you. Trained it like a pet. No ma'am, Tyler said respectfully but firmly. Ember chose to learn. There's a huge difference between forcing someone to obey and having them want to help because they care about you. As if understanding the moment, Ember walked forward to the edge of the defendant's circle. Technically a violation of protocol, but nobody moved to stop it. The little dragon looked up at Matriarch Catherine and did something that made half the gallery gasp in shock. Ember bowed. A full, formal drakenthrope greeting of deep respect, performed with perfect precision. Impossible, Beth whispered from her guard position. Hatchlings don't learn formal greetings for months. They certainly don't learn them from humans, Matriarch Catherine finished, her voice strange. She stared at Ember with something like disbelief. What have you done, human? Ember turned and walked back to Tyler, pressing close against his leg. The message was unmistakable. This is my family. This is where I belong. Tyler met the matriarch's gaze steadily. I gave Ember a choice. And Ember chose me. Chose us. Chose to believe that maybe humans and drakenthropes don't have to be enemies forever. Admiral Peterson rubbed his temples, looking suddenly tired. This tribunal needs time to deliberate. We'll reconvene in 3 hours. As the judges filed out, Matriarch Catherine paused and looked back at Tyler and Ember. Her expression was troubled, conflicted, like she was seeing something that challenged everything she'd believed for 50 years. For what it's worth, human, she said quietly, you may have done something far more dangerous than breaking our laws. You've made me question whether the hatred I've carried for 5 decades is as justified as I thought. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a disaster waiting to happen. Tyler managed a tired smile. Neither am I, ma'am. But I think it's worth finding out. The matriarch left without another word, and guards escorted Tyler to a holding cell. Ember refused to be separated, staying pressed against him even as they walked. In a bare room with a single bench, Tyler sat down with Ember's head resting in his lap. I don't know what happens next, Tyler admitted, scratching gently behind Ember's ears the way the little dragon liked. But whatever it is, we face it together. You and me against whatever the galaxy throws at us. Deal? Ember chirped agreement, those golden eyes full of trust and something that looked a lot like love. And for just a moment, despite everything, Tyler felt like maybe they'd already won the only battle that really mattered. Part 5, The Bridge. 3 hours stretched into 6, then 9, then 12. Tyler paced the holding cell until his legs ached while Ember watched with worried eyes. The little dragon kept making soft chirping sounds, trying to comfort him in the only way it knew how. They're really taking their time, Tyler muttered, running his hand through his hair for the 1000th time. That's either really good or really bad. No middle ground here. Encrypted communications are flooding the private diplomatic channels, Vera reported through the cell speaker system. Something significant is happening behind closed doors. The pattern suggests negotiation rather than simple judgment. Tyler stopped pacing. What kind of negotiation? Unknown. but Matriarch Catherine has been in contact with high-ranking Drakenthrope officials on the homeworld. Admiral Peterson is talking to the Terran Council. This is bigger than just your case now. Before Tyler could process that information, the cell door slid open. Beth stood there, her reptilian features as unreadable as ever.
They're ready.
Time to face the music. The walk back to the tribunal chamber felt longer this time, like walking to an execution. The gallery had somehow gotten even more crowded. Representatives from species Tyler didn't even recognize packed every available space, all wanting to witness whatever came next. Tyler took his position in the defendant's circle with Ember pressed against his side. The little dragon's scales had shifted to that nervous gray color, sensing the tension in the air. Tyler rested his hand on Ember's head, offering what comfort he could. The three judges looked exhausted, like they'd been through a war in that deliberation room. Admiral Peterson had loosened his collar. Arbiter Foster's perfect composure had cracks in it. And Matriarch Catherine looked like someone who'd had her entire worldview challenged and wasn't sure what to believe anymore. Admiral Peterson spoke first, his voice measured and careful. This tribunal has reviewed all evidence, consulted with experts in every relevant field, and had some very difficult conversations. What we've concluded is that Tyler Ross, by every technical legal measure, you committed multiple serious crimes.
Tyler's heart sank.
Beside him, Ember's scales darkened to a distressed charcoal color. However, Matriarch Catherine continued, and something in her tone made Tyler look up, the law exists to serve justice, not simply to punish. And this tribunal has determined that justice in this case requires something we never anticipated. Arbiter Foster activated the holographic displays, showing graphs and data Tyler couldn't quite follow. For 50 years, human-Drakenthrope relations have been defined entirely by trauma. The resource wars left scars so deep that both our peoples believed contact would only lead to more pain. We built walls between our species, convinced that separation was the only path to peace. But you've shown us something nobody predicted, Admiral Peterson continued, gesturing to Tyler and Ember. A bond that every scientific paper says shouldn't exist. A Drakenthrope hatchling and a human forming a genuine connection, not through force or training, but through simple compassion and choice. Our xenobiology teams have confirmed it. Ember isn't just tolerating you, Tyler. By every measurable standard, that hatchling is thriving in your care. Matriarch Catherine stood, and the entire chamber fell into absolute silence. Tyler held his breath, waiting for the verdict that would determine both their futures. I lost 3 daughters in the resource wars, the matriarch said, her voice thick with emotion. My youngest was barely older than Ember is now. For 50 years, I believed all humans were incapable of seeing my people as anything except resources to exploit or obstacles to eliminate. I hated your species with every fiber of my being. She descended from the judge's platform, breaking every protocol in the book. Guards shifted nervously, but nobody tried to stop her. She walked directly up to Tyler and Ember, and Tyler saw something impossible. Tears glistening in those ancient eyes. But you didn't see a resource when you found Ember trapped in that net, Catherine continued, her voice barely above a whisper. You saw a child in pain. And you risked everything. Your life, your freedom, your entire future just to save one hatchling. Not for money. Not for fame. Simply because it was the right thing to do. The matriarch did something then that made half the gallery gasp in shock. She lowered herself in the traditional Drakenthrope posture of profound respect, a gesture reserved for heroes who'd saved entire colonies. On behalf of my people, Catherine said, her voice carrying through the silent chamber, I apologize for painting all humans with the same brush. Not all of you are destroyers. Some, like you Tyler Ross, are protectors. Guardians. The kind of person who runs toward danger to save a life, regardless of species or consequence. Tyler felt his throat tighten with emotion. Ma'am, I don't know what to say. Say you'll accept what comes next, Catherine replied, standing and gesturing to the other judges. Because this tribunal has reached a verdict that will change everything. Arbiter Foster's voice rang out clear and official. Tyler Ross, all charges against you are hereby dismissed. Furthermore, you are appointed as the first official liaison between humanity and the Drakenthrope people. This position carries full diplomatic immunity and the authority to facilitate peaceful contact between our species. Tyler's mind went blank. I'm sorry, what? Admiral Peterson actually smiled, the first time Tyler had seen that expression on the stern man's face. You broke the law to do what was right. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need to heal 5 decades of wounds. As for Ember. Matriarch Catherine turned to the little dragon, speaking in the complex series of clicks and hisses that was the Drakenthrope native language. Ember's head tilted, listening with intense focus. Then Catherine switched to standard, clearly wanting Tyler to understand every word. Ember, child of the Crimson Ridge Nest, you face a choice that no hatchling has ever faced before. By law, you should return to our people. You would be honored, raised with every advantage our society can provide, taught the ancient ways of our ancestors. You would never want for anything. She paused, and the next words clearly caused her pain. Or you can stay with Tyler Ross. Walk between our worlds as the first of your kind. Be the bridge that proves two species can choose understanding over hatred. It will be harder. You will face prejudice from both sides. You will be questioned, doubted, sometimes feared. But you will also have the freedom to choose your own path. The entire chamber held its breath. Cameras from a dozen news organizations recorded every second. This moment would be studied in history classes for generations, Tyler realized. The moment that changed everything. Ember looked up at matriarch Catherine with clear respect, those golden eyes acknowledging the honor of what was being offered. Then the little dragon turned to Tyler and, without hesitation, pressed its head against his chest. The gesture of absolute trust and chosen family they developed over their weeks together. The choice was made. Not because Ember had to. Because Ember wanted to. Catherine's expression flickered with sadness, but also with unmistakable pride. Then it is decided. Ember chooses the path between worlds. And we will honor that choice. She looked at Tyler, and now her voice carried the full weight of her authority. Tyler Ross, I'm giving you the sacred responsibility of raising this child. Teach Ember about humanity's capacity for kindness, but also about our capacity for cruelty. Help Ember understand both our peoples. And in turn let Ember teach you our ways. Together, you will show the galaxy that the mistakes of the past don't have to define the future. I won't let you down, Tyler promised, his voice rough with emotion. Either of you. I know, Catherine said simply. You already proved that on Drakkar Prime, when nobody was watching and there was no reward waiting. That's when you see what someone's really made of. The formal tribunal concluded with paperwork, diplomatic credentials, and official appointments. But the real moment had already happened. The moment when a matriarch chose to forgive. When a human chose compassion over convenience. When a dragon chose love over law. As Tyler walked out of that chamber with Ember at his side and official diplomatic status in his pocket, Beth caught up with them at the docking bay. For the record, I thought you were just another criminal when we first met. Now I think you might be exactly what both our species needed. Someone too stubborn to accept that things have to stay broken. Just did what felt right, Tyler said honestly. That's exactly why it matters. Beth pressed something into his hand. A communication chip. That's my personal contact. When you're ready to start building real bridges between our peoples, call me. I think there are more of us on both sides who want peace than anyone realizes. We just needed someone to show us it was possible. Back on his ship, Tyler stood at the viewport with Ember perched on his shoulder. The little dragon had gotten too big for this position really, but still insisted on it. Tyler didn't have the heart to say no. So, Ember, Tyler said quietly, watching the stars stretch into lines as they jumped to light speed. Ready to change the galaxy? Ember chirped enthusiastically and nuzzled against his cheek, and Tyler laughed. Behind them, diplomatic channels were already buzzing with activity. Somewhere in the universe, humans and Drakenthropes were taking tentative steps toward each other for the first time in 50 years. It wouldn't be easy. Decades of hatred didn't disappear overnight. But it was possible. That's what Tyler and Ember had proven. That choosing to help someone even when everything said you shouldn't, could start ripples that changed entire civilizations. Vera's voice carried a note of satisfaction. Updated probability calculations show long-term peaceful human-Drakenthrope relations have increased from 12% to 71%. Cause of change: one stubborn human who couldn't walk away from a creature in need, and one dragon brave enough to trust. Tyler smiled, gently scratching under Ember's chin the way the little dragon loved. That's humanity for you. We're too stubborn to know when to quit. Too stupid to accept that things can't get better. Ember made that purring sound that meant happiness, and together they headed toward a future neither of their species had imagined possible. All because one day, on a volcanic moon covered in death, a human had knelt down and said 5 simple words that changed everything. Let me help you. Sometimes that's all it takes. One person willing to care when caring is inconvenient. One choice to do what's right instead of what's easy. One bond that proves love is stronger than fear. Tyler Ross and Ember weren't going to fix 50 years of hatred overnight. But they'd taken the first step. And sometimes, the first step is the hardest and most important one of all. The galaxy would never be quite the same. And that was exactly the point.